Welcome to Previously on X-Men.
The podcast that looks back on X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. You can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Other shows on the network include Three Nice Things, where we force ourselves to say three nice things about a movie with a bad and often earned reputation, Radio 64, Video Game Music Remix Radio, and 9021, Here We Go, a 90210 rewatch podcast.
I had a 90210 dream last night.
Huh, really?
Dylan
related?
They came, no.
Brandon?
Stop it.
Okay.
No, it was, the group of actors were coming to the college near me and doing like a thing, and like I saw them on the bus and stuff.
Right, like doing
Isn't
like
that
a
weird?
don't do drugs kind of thing?
No, I don't know. It wasn't a convention because it was just them, but like they were just coming and being like, we're famous, come look at us.
Okay, yeah, 90210 reunion college tour.
Yes, like you do.
That's fun. Those are the podcasts. We have a few video series. One of the new ones is Comic Book Coffee Break, where myself and 90210 Here We Go. Boy, I can never say that title right more than once.
9021, Here We Go. I have no trouble with it.
Yeah, Nick Gunning of 9021 Here We Go and I are doing basically like an hour or less conversation about the comic books we're reading at the moment.
I think that's really fun.
It is fun. It's
I've discovered, however, that I never listen to it because it doesn't just like pop up on my podcast feed.
No,
I have to go find it.
It's just a YouTube video series.
Yeah.
We didn't want to. I don't know. We didn't want to fork over the cash for another podcast feed at the moment.
Yeah, that's wise.
So yeah, I'll probably be ended up talking about this movie a little bit over there, though probably in less depth.
You know what? People who start here should jump over there and see if I and my husband have vastly different views on this movie.
Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Facebook and Twitter at Previously on X. Please rate, subscribe, and share the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Eric Mickles, known online as Dusk vs. Tweak, and with me is my co-host.
Sorry, I dropped my mouse.
It sounded like you just did that angry internet meme of the guy like breaking his hands at his keyboard.
Yep, that was me.
Like, I'm so mad about Deadpool!
Wait a minute, I have to deal with this right now.
Yeah, that was Hilary Gunning.
There are trolls online. You couldn't see it, but I was miming the typing action.
Today, we're talking about the 2016 film, Deadpool.
Yeah, there's a reason, surely.
To be talking about Deadpool? And
technically, this is the next X-Men movie. That's the situation. Okay.
Yeah,
that's why
it's in the X-Men franchise. I mean, in 2016, it took. I had to double check that because I was like, it is 2016, right? But then so's X-Men Apocalypse because they both came out the same year.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because even they recognize that this isn't really an X-Men movie.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about when we talk about X-Men Apocalypse. But there was a very small gap between Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, especially compared to the other films.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that.
So they kind of were cranking them out fast. But yes, we're talking about the 2016 film Deadpool. Hilary, do you remember or were you paying attention to anything about Deadpool coming to theaters, like the whole road to actually being greenlit?
I mean, not really.
Okay.
I mean, I was aware just because I'm generally aware of all this stuff that happens, but not like I wasn't. I would hear Deadpool and just be like, okay, whatever, Deadpool's coming.
Okay, and because you're a cartoon fan first, and then that's what got you to read the comics.
Right.
You probably then. I mean, Deadpool only makes like speechless cameos in the cartoon at times, like a quick image and he's gone.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I did not have any knew who he was, did not care about him in the slightest.
So this was like at the time where I just went to comicbookresources.com every day to go to their comic reel section. It was just daily news about comic book movies, and I would just be on it every day looking to see what the news was, and if it was Deadpool related. I was interested at the time because I'd gotten all his comics, or at least most of the comics that his miniseries and like the Joe Kelly run and a bunch of the stuff after that. So I was in it with Deadpool when I was a teenager.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, that makes perfect sense. You're a teenage boy.
Well, there's a difference between the Joe Kelly Deadpool comics and the movie, but we'll talk about it when we get to the movie. Deadpool movie talks had gone on for a while, though the rights to a Deadpool movie were separate from the X-Men rights. So
Oh, okay.
when Fox bought the X-Men rights, they didn't have the ability to do Deadpool.
Because he's not really an X-Men character.
Deadpool movie rights were sold to Artisan Entertainment. They bought the rights in 2000, and that was when they bought a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of different movie rights. From Marvel. It's when Marvel was just throwing all their characters to the wind, just trying to like stay afloat. And Artisan,
remember the time?
Yeah, right. Remember when Marvel was like, "Please buy our filing cabinets."
Yes.
Slightly used.
Now they rule the world.
Artisan Entertainment bought Deadpool, but then Artisan Entertainment was bought by Lionsgate in 2003. Lionsgate had done the Punisher film,
Which you like.
Which I like, but going over the films they did at this time, I'm like, I'm glad they didn't do a Deadpool movie. 2004, New Line was interested in a Deadpool movie, and they wanted Ryan Reynolds attached. And you know what? Also, I think this is
when was that?
This is around 2004. So,
oh, wow, that early.
Well, this is coming off of his performance in Blade Trinity, which despite being largely a garbage film that killed the whole Blade series, Ryan Reynolds himself was pretty good in the movie.
See, that's really interesting. I'm really interested that early they thought Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds.
It had been going on forever. When I say like I was on comic book, like going to that thing all the time, it was always Ryan Reynolds attached. And I think at this time, he was also being kind of batted around as the Flash. So like,
okay, I could see that too.
It was just which was my thought at the same time. Like, oh
that's
yeah, I can
so
see that too.
That's so interesting because Ryan Reynolds is not. I mean, like, I feel like the Deadpool movies are really what lifted him to really fully 100% recognizable celebrity.
I think he's just one of those guys that like probably has an easier time getting in films than he should because he never really seems to be that big of a box office draw.
No, he really doesn't.
So,
but I mean, I guess
him like, being in the movie Life didn't really make that a huge hit.
Although that was a reason that I wanted to see that movie. So
oh well, all right. Well, here's the I liked.
So
Ryan
you're
Reynolds.
wrong.
I liked Ryan Reynolds in like the things I had seen. I remember seeing him in Smoking Aces and thinking he was pretty good. And like I said, Blade Trinity, and there was some other stuff, but he's not like box office gold or anything, you know?
Well, I guess you got to think then that like, I mean, I feel like if you see Ryan Reynolds in anything, you know what he does. You know his thing, and you know he has like this ability to be like whatever, like funny and irreverent and stuff. So I guess maybe it's just they weren't looking for a box office draw. They just saw Ryan Reynolds and they were like, that guy. Let's have that guy be Deadpool.
Well, I think also like in 2004, I'm not sure what the timeline is, but he must be coming off of Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place kind of stuff, and some like low scale successes.
The height of his career.
And
you know what? When was that one that he did with Sandra Bullock?
The Proposal? I think that's like 2008.
I love that movie. That's all.
Well, so like I'm thinking like this is coming off of like his star is Ryan. Is Ryan. Oh my gosh.
His star is Ryan.
His star is rising at this point, I think. And so New Line is like after Blade Trinity, like during Blade Trinity, they wanted to spin off his character and Jessica Biel. They wanted to spin off their characters separately from Blade Trinity, which was a whole reason why
It's kind of a surprising career.
But Blade Trinity kind of was real bad, and the whole Night Walkers or whatever they were called in Blade Trinity spinoff was canceled. But yeah, New Line wanted to work with Ryan Reynolds some more. David Goyer, who had directed Blade Trinity, wanted to work with Ryan some more. Nothing happened fast enough because in 2005, Fox themselves became interested in Deadpool, and they signed a deal for the movie rights. So if like David Goyer and Ryan Reynolds had made a Deadpool movie with New Line, they would have had to ignore all the Weapon X connections. They wouldn't be able to say mutant stuff. They wouldn't be able to connect it to Wolverine. All that would have had to be not attached at all. But when Fox bought it, even though Deadpool was separate from it, they could now include their X-Men stuff into it. And, you know,
when was Wolverine?
Wolverine. So in 2004, when they're talking about this with New Line, then it's only X-Men 1 and 2.
Okay.
When Fox bought the rights in 2005, X-Men 3 was a year on. So Wolverine came out in 2008. No, I'm sorry. Wolverine came out in 2009. So, I mean, I guess, like, if they're writing the scripts and stuff, they're probably, like, thinking ahead. Well, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to assume that Fox Studios with their X-Men movies was thinking ahead.
They plan ahead. They do
Yeah.
a lot of planning.
So Deadpool wouldn't get his own movie just yet, as his first appearance in some form is in the 2009 film X-Men Origins Wolverine. So,
Which they refer to in the movie, right? Do they? Or no,
oh yeah,
maybe
yeah.
they don't.
I think there's some lines that are
They
directly.
say something about special forces at some point.
Yeah, special forces, and I think the line where he's saying like go places, meet people, kill them is a line right from Origins Wolverine.
Oh, okay. Now, do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have all of this information right in front of you. When they had him as Deadpool in that movie, was that like a trial run, or was it like we're gonna do a Deadpool?
I
movie?
think it was just because like here's the thing, Ryan Reynolds was talking about being Deadpool, but there was like I remember there being a really strong internet backing of that. Like, no one was really like, no, not Ryan. Like, it seemed like it really kind of felt an obvious choice for a lot of people. And so I think, and he had been lobbying for it for a while, and I just think there was just so much backing him on that, at least with fan support. It was just like an easy check for them, you know?
I think that is just so funny. Just this idea that Ryan Reynolds was attached to this character for like a decade is just so funny to me, because I mean, it's true. Like, you see him and he's very good at it. He's kind of a natural pick, but like, he can't be the only person who would have been a good Deadpool.
No, but I don't.
Why is he locked in? I
don't remember ever seeing anybody else his name being attached. I think he just started lobbying for it before. I mean,
he just wanted it.
If in 2004 is when he starts lobbying for it, you know, like Deadpool at this time in the comics could barely sustain his own comic. His own solo series was constantly on the cancellation block, and they canceled it in issue, gosh, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it's issue 69. It might be 79, but they canceled it. And it was like a different series. It was Agent X for a while for 12 issues, and then he didn't have his own series until around like 2004 or 2003, where it's him and Cable. It's a Cable and Deadpool books, because like Deadpool by himself was just constantly being canceled. So I think like
Can I ask a spoilery question that you just reminded me of?
Yeah.
Is Cable in the second movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Because there's that thing at the very end of the movie where he's like, Cable's going to be in the next movie, and I was like, I wonder if that's true.
He is. Yes, Cable's in the next movie.
That's all. Carry on.
So I just think maybe even Deadpool in the comics was small enough that other people weren't campaigning for it.
That's just very interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting to me. I wonder if Ryan Reynolds is like one of those actors, like I mean, he wouldn't want, well, maybe he would. I always think about Kevin Smith in this kind of a situation, because he's just like some guy who like everybody in the industry just likes for some reason. I wonder if that's like a Ryan Reynolds, like he's just got a lot of friends and people are like, hey, Ryan could do that.
Yeah, he seems likable.
That's just how he kind of like skates through life. Yeah. Because like you say, he's not, I mean, he wasn't, maybe he is now, a box office draw, which seems like it's a major consideration for a lot of movies, but he just keeps getting stuff. So like maybe people just like working with him because he's nice.
And you know what? Like Blade Trinity, Wolverine was slightly disappointing critically and commercially.
And as you'll recall, listeners, I liked it.
And Hilary likes it more than I did. It was our first... No, it wasn't. Never mind. Last Stand was our, like, how long was it? Reynolds' portrayal was still well regarded. I don't think anyone ever thought...
That's got to be the best part of the movie.
Yeah, when Ryan Reynolds is playing the Wade Wilson character in the half of the movie that he's in, he's great. And I remember like loving that scene when I first saw that movie, being like, wow, it's really Deadpool.
Yeah. He really nails, I mean, I'm just going to talk about him in that movie. Mm-hmm. He just so nails the like being funny and laid back, and then just turning it on and just being like a killer for a second, and then he's like, okay, that's done. Like at the end, he's like, people are dead. Yep. He's just like makes it less of a big thing, but like when you see him in action, he's like hardcore. I like that.
After that, he Reynolds and fans kept championing for a solo film for the character. And like it's funny because when they were making the movie, they were like, oh yeah, we set up Deadpool for his own place, we can just spin him off and make his own movie. But then when you watch the movie, like, in what way is this character set up for anything except for failure? And so like almost instantly after Origins, they're like, we'll just ignore it.
Yeah. Which I think is sad. I mean, I think there are ways in which they could have rehabilitated that, but you know, whatever. Now that you've said that, I do remember that when that movie was over, I was like, I want a Deadpool movie. I
Yeah.
want a Deadpool movie right now. I want it
Yeah.
yesterday. And then they gave me what they gave me. It's fine.
So Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick were brought on to write the script in 2010. And Hilary, you're an editor, so you're going to hate this, but you can't see it. I wrote "Right the Wrong Way."
Why? Why
I'm
would
sorry.
you do that? Why?
But they...
And then why would you tell me? Because it feels like it's only to hurt me,
I'm
I
sorry.
think.
I just saw that. I'm like, oh, that's bad.
Because I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I know. I wanted everybody to know that I'm human.
All right.
So yeah, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick were brought on to write the script in 2010, Hilary, and they stay on. So like Ryan Reynolds has been championing for this film in 2000 since 2004. These guys show up for 2010 and stay on as well. And
This is
it's
bananas.
funny because
You're
like
telling me that this is Fox. This is a Fox movie.
right,
That has the same people start to finish.
right.
That's what you're telling me.
In 2011, Tim Miller was brought on to direct.
Hang on. Did they write a script?
Yeah.
And then they used that script. That's the script
Hilary, they wrote a
in the
script,
movie.
and then throughout the years, they would go in and like refine it, and also update like the pop culture references. But that was like you get these two writers. You have Ryan Reynolds and now Tim Miller, who does direct the film.
I feel like you're lying to me.
No, this is a real Fox production. It must be because it's so tangential from the X-Men series.
They just did their own thing, I guess.
Hey, did I use tangential right?
Tangential, yeah. You did.
I didn't
You
say
did.
it right the second time, but okay. Well, anyways, there you go. Writers, an actor, a director. Things are happening. The movie's gonna happen. Oh, hey, what movie's that on the horizon? Green Lantern. All right, let's watch it.
Hang on.
Oh no.
So they were planning Deadpool, and then Green Lantern happened?
Green Lantern happened. I mean, they got a director, and then Green Lantern came out. So,
can I tell you something really quick before you get into Green Lantern?
Well?
Stop it! I liked Green Lantern. I did. I enjoyed
each their
it.
own.
Let's just
you know
get
what?
that out of the way.
Everybody has different taste buds. I love Sour Patch Kids. My wife hates them.
Oh, Sour Patch Kids are legitimate.
I like mustard. You know what? We'll talk about taste being their own when we get to this movie, because there is something I think.
Does your wife not like mustard?
Oh no, she hates it.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Tell her I said that's weird.
She'll hear. I'll leave that in. While in interviews, Reynolds would state, it's not Green Lantern or Deadpool. It's Green Lantern, then Deadpool.
Okay. In close succession, or
when Green Lantern was getting ramped up, Reynolds would be like, I'm not picking or choosing. I'm going to do both. I'm doing Green Lantern, and then we're going to do Deadpool.
What a strange choice.
But it looked like the disappointing Green Lantern, both critically and financially. This is Ryan Reynolds though. Like, right? This is his career.
That's true. No, that is absolutely true.
It looked like Green Lantern was going to stop Deadpool from happening. So
I mean, everybody hated it. Everybody hated that movie. Now, wasn't there a thing? Can we just pause for a second and talk about Green Lantern? Wasn't there a thing where
I don't have a lot of notes for Deadpool, so let's do some filler.
That's true. I know. I was going to say to the listeners, sometimes you probably hear page turning.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the movies,
I've
you're
just
not
got
going to hear that.
Yeah.
That's all the page turning you're going to hear. We have one page each. Anyway, about Green Lantern, wasn't there a thing where there's like a Green Lantern character that would fit with Ryan Reynolds, and they chose a different one?
Maybe. I mean, he's playing Hal Jordan in that, and Hal Jordan is kind of like, I don't know, I think most popular interpretations of Hal Jordan make him look like Tom Cruise's character from Top Gun, like snarky and everything. So I guess like Ryan Reynolds has that, but he is not the character he's not the actor I would have picked for that. I don't think he's like imposing enough. I think, because I think Hal Jordan is snarky, but I think he also has to have an air of authority, and I just wouldn't take that from Ryan. And they play up that movie. They play up on the whole like, I don't know if I'm special or not kind of thing too much, but I don't think Reynolds is the best actor for either. He doesn't, because he's gonna play a character who doesn't care about that. He needs to be more self-assured, I think. So, I think Reynolds was kind of miscast. I mean, if they had cast him as Guy Gardner, who is like, a pain in the butt to everybody, that might have made more sense. You like it. I do not.
I do like it. I understand that it's bad and that one villain guy is unbearable. Yeah. But I guess maybe it's just because I like Ryan Reynolds is the main reason why I like it.
I was really disappointed, especially the third act and everything, where it just becomes hard to watch. 2011, Green Lantern happens. Fox is not not so hot now about the whole Ryan Reynolds superhero movie. And Fox is becoming unsure about an R-rated superhero film, because also at this point, there's not a lot of R-rated, outside of the Blade films, there haven't been a lot of R-rated superhero success stories.
Well, the audience is different at that time, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's not as broad. It's mostly like younger people and like
Yeah. Well, 2011, I mean, this is pre-Avengers, so like, you know, Iron Man is hot news. Dark Knight,
Iron Man.
Dark Knight is, you know, blowing people away, and really X-Men: The Last Stand and Spider-Man 3 were still like, you know, the peaks of box office success. So like, I mean, in 2011 when Green Lantern came out, we had Captain America, we had the first Thor, we had X-Men First Class, and we had Green Lantern. I think it was in a weird transitional stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand their uncertainty at that time, because maybe even Thor and Captain America weren't like knocking over records or anything. They were, you know, they were doing business, but they were doing business that if they did now, we'd call them a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, Tim Miller had put together some CGI test footage to show Fox and had Ryan Reynolds do his voice work for it, but Fox was not impressed enough with that test footage. And now Avengers comes out in 2012, and they're even less enthusiastic about Deadpool, and they're kind of thinking about using the character as some sort of shared universe to compete with Marvel.
Huh, interesting.
Which, I mean, we know they do, because in 2014, they do X-Men Days of Future Past, which is kind of their
Right.
X-Men shared universe within their own timeline.
Yeah.
In July 2014, the test footage that Tim Miller had created was leaked online. And I remember watching it at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was pretty well received by the internet, including myself.
I mean, that was probably on purpose, right? They were like, well, the studio doesn't buy it, but we know that the audience would love it. So
Well,
let's
okay,
just.
I'm not sure if Fox ever admitted it, but it is 100% the reason why the movie was finally greenlit and given a release date.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know
makes
if
sense.
Fox was ever like, we really like the test footage results and everything, so we did it. But Yahoo, gosh, I'm using Yahoo, but Yahoo Movies
Yahoo.
interviewed Ryan Reynolds before the movie was coming out, and they asked him, how did the project suddenly get on the fast track to production? And he's like, he says leaked test footage, exclusively the leaked test footage, 100%.
That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense to me. I'll tell you, you're gonna find out. So I'm just gonna tell you now, I don't like this movie. So there's that. But I appreciate what it does in like an innovation kind of a way. So it totally makes sense to me that the studio wouldn't get it and that it would have to go straight to
Sure.
the audience before it would get
Also,
greenlit.
I mean, you say superhero movie in 2012, you're saying like $200 million budget, expecting a 500 million, 700 million payout kind of thing. And I can see why there'd be like a R-rated Deadpool movie isn't that. So we can almost have to like rethink what we're saying when we say superhero movie here.
True, yeah.
Yahoo asked Ryan Reynolds, who leaked it? And Ryan Reynolds says, I would have. If I had known it would have caused that. Honestly, we all thought Tim Miller had leaked it. But I had since investigated that enough in quiet moments where he was beyond the point of being penalized by anybody, and he said he really didn't do it. The initial leak came from Fox, they think. Someone recorded the footage on their iPhone and then released it, and then once that happened, somebody hacked into Blur Studios and got the original high-res and put it online. And they asked him how he felt about that. He says, I was excited because you can look back at the email chain from all of us, the core group of Deadpool saying, we should just leak this like 3 years ago, saying, hey, if this is going to stagnate, one of us has to just say, whoops, I slipped online by accident. And nobody seemed to want to nut up and do that, myself included. Someone did it for us years later when we were completely assumed it was dead in the water.
That's funny.
So
I like that.
Yeah, it's funny too because we talked about it with X-Men Origins. The movie was leaked online, and that was a real bad situation. But yeah, this it's just like a 2-minute test reel. It's basically the beginning of this movie. A lot of it is shot for shot. The beginning of this movie.
I think the beginning of this movie is the best part of this movie. No. One of the best parts of the movie.
There were jokes that certainly didn't land for me in the test footage, but it took me a second too to realize it was CGI. So maybe that's just because it was on the phone and everything. But I remember watching it and being like, wow, the costume looks good, the action looks good, some of the jokes are funny. It just kind of looked like a Deadpool movie. So yeah, I think if that was the intention of whoever leaked it, besides just like, I want people to see this,
Yeah.
it did it. Because yeah, Fox greenlit it. They gave it a release date for February. They did lower the budget of the film. They took out $8 million from the original sum, and this caused the script to remove a motorcycle chase, and they had to have Deadpool forget his bag of guns at the end of the movie so that they wouldn't have to have a big shootout and everything. They could just be like, which I think...
See, that's interesting because when we talked to David Hayter, he told us that the CGI stuff is where a lot of the money is.
Right.
But it seems like they do heavy CGI in this movie.
Don't forget, David Hayter's talking about the CGI of 2000 and 2003.
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean, in 2015, you just hit R on your keyboard now, and it gives you a metal colossus.
Do this.
Yeah. So I think, the effects have just become cheaper. The CGI is probably cheaper than the physical effects in a lot of ways now.
Yeah. That's a big difference in time.
Since Fox wouldn't pay... So Fox is still doing certain things. Fox wouldn't pay to keep the writers on the set every day. So Ryan Reynolds paid them out of his own pocket to keep him on the set every day.
Really?
Yeah.
I like him.
But he's Canadian.
That's it. Let me tell you what. People say that Canadians are nice, and you think that it's just like a stereotype. Mm-hmm. They're nice.
Yeah. Hillary's part Canadian.
People. They're nice people.
Yeah. So
I'm not nice. I got a lot of American in me.
Well, you said you like Green Lantern. I feel like only a Canadian audience member could say that.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was nice. I liked it.
They worked real hard.
They bless their hearts.
Junkie XL composed the music for this, though he uses his real name. Nice try, Junkie XL. I do not notice the music at all in this movie. Every now and then I'm like, oh yeah, there's something going on here, but... He says he's going for an 80s kind of vibe and using 80s style of instruments because all of Deadpool's musical references are before 1990. So this shows a little thought there. The movie was released on February 12th, 2016. This movie had a budget of $58 million. With a budget of $58 million, that's making it, I think... than less than even the first X-Men movie cost. I've got it even right here. You know what? It is. This is the lowest budgeted movie in the X-Men movie franchise.
Huh.
The second lowest is the first X-Men film, which had $75 million in 2000. So, like, cover for inflation, the first X-Men movie's budget is even higher.
Yeah.
So yes, a very low budget.
Crazy. Well, I mean, it sounds a lot like it was a passion project, so there's probably, like, people working for less than they might otherwise.
So budget of $58 million, and that was after it lost $8 million. So it was supposed to be higher. It's now 58. It made $785 million worldwide.
Why do people love this movie?
It is the second highest grossing X-Men film worldwide.
Oh,
only behind Deadpool 2. And
I
only
knew you
behind
were going to say Deadpool 2. I knew you were going to say Deadpool 2.
By like $1 million.
Oh, God. Now, I haven't seen Deadpool 2. I am told I will like Deadpool 2. So
here's the thing.
Set that there.
I said this thing about how it's number 2 worldwide. Domestically, here in North America.
Oh, no.
Highest. Highest grossing movie in the X-Men series, period.
America, what's wrong with you?
It goes, if we're looking at worldwide, it goes Deadpool 2, Deadpool, X-Men Days of Future Past. If we're looking at domestic, Deadpool 2, X-Men The Last Stand.
What?
We talked about this when we did Days of Future Past.
Well, I find that unacceptable. Let's move on.
In North America, X-Men The Last Stand is the highest grossing X-Men movie. But we talked about that. We talked about it being at the highest.
I'm sure we did, and I'm sure I complained about it then, too.
And you know what's crazy? Not just about it being the highest grossing movie. Like, just proportionally. Because, like, we've talked about how a movie has to make 3 times its budget to be considered a box office success. Like, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. Like, you just flush with cash. I mean, yeah.
Once you get to the big studios, it stops being about the art and is like exclusively 1,000% about the money. So that makes sense to me. Like, they want the money.
On its Rotten Tomatoes score at the time of recording is an 85% for critics, 90% for audience.
85% for critics.
Yeah. And so, okay, so we were talking about like 2011, 2016. Gosh, I don't even think I could pull the movies out of my hat. It's X-Men Apocalypse, and Civil War. So there you go, Hilary. 85% for critics, 90% for audience, almost $800 million worldwide. That's Spider-Man 3 business right there. And so, yeah, we were saying 2016 is Civil War. I mean, this is post-second Avengers now. This is post-Days of Future Past. I don't know if Fox is right or not in terms of their hesitation earlier on, but I think, obviously, in 2016, audiences are 100% prepared for this.
Yeah, they're ready for it.
So, our history with the film. Did you see this movie in theaters? You did not, right?
I saw it early on. I don't remember if it was in theaters or not. I don't remember the situation, but I did see it like pretty early on.
Okay. I saw this with my wife and her brother, and we saw it.
That's an interesting pairing to see that with. What did each of them think about it?
I think they both liked it. And the theater seemed to also really like it. And to laugh at jokes I didn't think people would laugh at, but they were laughing.
Tell me about the experience, because this is deciding it for me. I didn't see it in theaters. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the experience of watching it with a group of people in a theater, because everyone, I'm remembering now, my sister adored this movie. My sister, who is a relatively conservative person, loved this movie, thought it was just riotous laughter start to finish. So I watched the movie. I didn't laugh. Like I was like, a couple times. And it didn't feel like I was like, this isn't funny. It was just like, this isn't trying to be funny. So I want you to tell me what the audience reaction was.
The audience I saw it with, I want to even say it was close to Valentine's Day or something. We were down there for a funeral. So this was actually like kind of a relief thing that we were doing. Like, okay, let's go see Deadpool and laugh for however long it is. My wife and brother-in-law liked the movie and laughed. The audience laughed a lot, like the whole time. They were laughing at all the jokes. It seemed to do, like, all the dark murder humor that happens during the action scenes got laughs. Yeah. It seemed like, it was working the comedy angle, and it worked it very well with the audience I was in. I laughed as well, but not as much as I had hoped, and not as much as the people in the theater. So I've wrote down the line that got the biggest laugh for me, but that's later on in the movie.
Okay.
So
I want to pause and talk about this, because this is what I find the most interesting about this movie, because I watched it again last night, and I just don't see it as a laugh kind of movie. And that is how apparently everyone in the planet sees it. They start it and they're like, this is a Will Ferrell, like, crazy, let's just laugh and be silly the entire time.
Rough.
And it just doesn't feel that way for me.
I feel like we're in the review section of this now.
I'm sorry, I want to talk about it.
No, if this movie had come out when I was 16 or 17, this would have been my favorite movie. Because I was riding high on Deadpool comics. I was watching South Park every night, and it would have been like the ultimate movie for me, because like at this time I was also still digging movies like The Punisher and whatnot. So even my bar for superhero qualities, like, just make a movie of it and I'll be into it. So this movie would have,
I love it.
This movie would have been awesome to me as a kid, especially because of that humor in there. But I have since changed. My type of humor has changed. At the time, when I was watching South Park all that time, like, me and my friends would watch, and we would just swear just because we could. We would try to find the crudest, filthiest combinations of swear words to put in. Like, oh, how can we top it? I'm gonna call him the this, and this all in one. And like that was our trial by combat as friends to just see what the crudest thing we can say verbally was. It happened at a point where I was like, I don't even know where it was. It maybe like I was 18 or something. I'm like, I don't want to talk like this anymore. It's too natural. And like I just had this thing. So like I just kind of moved away from that line of speaking, but also humor. And so then I see something like Deadpool, which is like, I know, I'll just say the phrase teabag. I'll say the word butthole. And that's the joke?
Okay, so you're saying that it's a style of humor difference.
Yes.
So what I'm just being an old person and
maybe not even an old person. I think if your type of humor is not just hearing the word fart. Yeah, if not just hearing somebody say, "Hi, that's my crotch." I think it's because
so
this
that's
movie,
what people were reacting to. Like
I don't even think this movie's absurdist humor.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No,
it's not.
It's just,
I guess that's probably what my problem was, because I couldn't isolate
laughing. I think the humor is just so profane that
it's just funny because it's profane.
Listen, if we're discussing humor,
no, I don't
the types
understand.
of humor, because humor is like the most subjective art form there is.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if being ridiculously profane in circumstances where you wouldn't necessarily be that way is funny, because sometimes it's he's being profane in what you would see as an action film with the British villain, the credits kind of joke about. Right. And whereas Liam Neeson would be you better watch yourself. He's you better watch my penis. Yeah. So
I liked listening to the pause where you cycle through which is the most acceptable but also shocking thing.
I went for the medical one.
Penis.
But that's the, and then even the superhero stuff. You know what? It's here's Colossus, who you've seen in some X-Men movies and is playing this kind of Boy Scouty superhero role, and he's saying he's a big bag of buttholes over there, and you can't. Oh my gosh!
So it's subverting the expectations.
Hilary, this movie is so subversive.
So that, but that's what makes it funny. So people are expecting it to be serious, and he just says "but," and that's the funny thing.
I don't know, because I think people went in. I don't think people are expecting it to be serious. So
no. I guess I mean
I think it's subversive. I think that's the thing. I think it's subversive humor.
Okay.
But
I can understand that.
It's subversive humor in a way that does not really make me laugh very much. And it's interesting because when they were not interested because of 2011 and they were looking at the script and R-rated, both Fox and Tim Miller and Ryan, everybody agreed. This is the one thing that Fox, I guess, got right. They all agreed that the script couldn't really be brought down to a PG-13 thing. It wasn't something they thought could successfully be done. And this is something that I've always kind of argued against since I was a teenager, even during my South Park days, I call them. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me on this, and obviously $800 million worth of people, because that's what we are. We're just millions worth of people. But
I'm glad that you've accepted that in our life.
But they'll disagree with me. I think I've never, when I was reading Joe Kelly's Deadpool and the Deadpools that came after, I never thought this character has to be rated R. His humor was subversive and absurdist, but it never struck me as needing to drop F-bombs or make incredibly lewd sexual jokes. It never came that way across to me in the comics. It always just seemed like he's wacky, he's subversive, he'll make fun of everybody, he has crazy pop culture humor, but it never struck me as art. And because it was in the comics, it didn't have to be either. It had to be it had to stay PG-13 in the comics, or so
sometimes having that boundary enhances the creativity.
Yeah, I always
if you can't just go for the crazy I'm gonna shock everyone with this nonsense, but at the same time it could be that they just wanted him to be unfiltered completely.
Yeah, no, that's the thing.
Let's just let him just be whatever.
Yes, if they're making the movie, that was the thing. They just want to make it R-rated, unfiltered, and just be able to do whatever they want. But for me personally, how I read the character and what I liked about the character, it didn't need it didn't need an R-rated platform to do that. And so I've never really agreed with it needs to be R-rated. And also, what you were saying, you brought up Kevin Smith. He was in his Clerks animated series commentary. They were talking about how doing Clerks and their style of humor on network television and having to limit that really made them feel more creative because they had that limitations. And I'm not saying you should censor people to breed creativity, but you're right, like limitations do help foster certain things of creativity. And I do think Deadpool suffers. My type of humor is not really represented in this movie. I think what I think is hilarious, I think is not well done in an R-rated film. So I think I might have enjoyed a PG-13 Deadpool movie comedically more. Yeah. I think about his appearances in like it was the Hulk versus two-parters where it was Hulk versus Thor, but also Hulk versus Wolverine, and Deadpool's in there, and he's like a highlight. He's so funny. There's a scene where Hulk is chasing Wolverine and Deadpool down the hall, and Hulk is like 3/4 of the screen, and Deadpool and Wolverine are just running, looking at the camera, and Deadpool's just like, Wolverine, I think we lost him. And that cracks me up. And like, that's more of like the Deadpool humor.
See, I'm interested to hear you talk about him in the comics, because I haven't read any of the comics. And that, the like pop culture references and the like breaking the fourth wall and like the just talking, that's the stuff in this movie that I do like.
Yeah.
Like the times when I laugh are like when he's talking about his time as Green Lantern, and like when he's just saying it's the non-fart jokes that I like, and they're it's not even like there aren't that many. They're just so vastly overshadowed by everything else.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like it's just the go-to. The discussion is basically like, what is funny? But yeah, so when people are like, why didn't you like this movie? It's just like, well, I guess both Hilary and my type of humor is in a different direction here.
It's a shame that we both have a similar reaction to this, because everyone listening to this is going to be like, what a bunch of prudes. They don't like the F word.
Listen.
And they're right. I mean, like, this is a limited perspective, and it would be better, happier, if I had enjoyed the movie. Yeah. I can't help that I didn't, but I'm sorry. I don't think you're stupid if you like fart jokes. I mean, I understand why they're funny.
I will say, though, since this is my platform, that a lot of the people I know who liked this movie were the teenagers who came to the library I worked at and came to the program, and all of them were still in high school. You know, I think that also says something to me, that a lot of like teenagers love Deadpool. If you're in high school, you freaking love Deadpool. You love Deadpool art, and you love the Deadpool movie and humors. And so like I know I didn't know a single teenager who didn't like Deadpool. And
well, that's another thing about it being rated R, because that almost makes it even better for teenagers. Oh, yeah. Because then they're watching. I mean, just the fact that it's an R-rated movie makes it exciting for them.
But yeah, I think like my humor tends to be. It sounds snobby to say like I like smart humor.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I said it. I like smart humor, but I also like absurdist humor. And I think the two of those actually are really close to. Yeah. And I think Deadpool 2, which I've only seen once because now we're doing this podcast, so I was like, oh, I gotta wait. I think Deadpool 2 goes a little bit more towards my brand of humor. So
yeah. Okay. So while we're talking about styles of humor, what's the name of his friend at the bar?
Weasel.
Okay. He was a highlight of the movie for me, and his style of humor is very different than the fart humor. And I think it's a good example of like what I would be looking for. And then you see him do, you know how a lot of the time the comedians will do like a bunch of different takes in rapid succession with just like saying sillier and sillier things. Yeah. You can see that after the movie, and that just shows you, like when you're talking about absurdist humor, that's kind of where he goes, where it's just like these like really refined, just like insane things to say, and that's really funny to me. So that having that like within there, and I think Ryan Reynolds acts differently when he's with him too, because Ryan Reynolds can do that. He shines in that style of humor.
Yeah. Well, and like you talked about, like he was funny in X-Men Origins.
Yes.
With all his lines. So
yes, that is a really good thing to juxtapose, because he's what I wanted there, and then just not in this movie.
There are funny people in this movie. Like everybody in
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds.
Kind of funny that I like.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't do those things.
I like Karen Stoney a lot, who plays Dopinder, the taxi driver.
He's great. Why would you cast someone like him and not do that kind of humor.
Karen Sony's funny in so many different things. He was in the short-lived, Outer Space? Other Space, it might have been called. It was like only 8 episodes. It was on Yahoo TV with Community. And
Stop talking about Yahoo.
I know. But I thought that show was so funny, and he was very funny in it. Now let's discuss the art of parody. No.
Hang on a second. Is this going to end up being a long episode? Because it's feeling like it's going to end up being a long episode.
No, we had a lot of history to go over, which I think is fun. I think is the most fun stuff to talk about.
That Deadpool is very interesting about this particular movie. And so we did the history,
and then we had
did the critique on styles of humor.
Yep, we philosophical discussions of what is laughter. Let's just go through the movie real quick.
So let's go
through the new. There's no X. This movie when
I looked for the X. They didn't do the X.
When the Fox logo disappeared, no, of course they wouldn't do it. This movie's so subversive.
No, I know, but I thought they might because like they did really early on, and then they didn't for so long, and then I thought this one they'd be like, we are not an X-Men movie, but we're gonna do the X because it's silly or whatever.
Yeah, or like really emphasize the X, like have it up there really longer.
Like have fireworks.
Yeah.
Out and like a butt, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone flipping someone off.
You get the style of humor.
I get it. You're right.
Listen, my notes are not as like they're just on a page, so we're gonna skip through most of the movie. So we'll just do the plot outline then, so we can go through the notes and just say what we liked or didn't like and stuff. Movie opens, media res. Deadpool jumps into a car, kills a bunch of people. He's looking for Francis, who we later find out has kidnapped his girlfriend. So yes, it opens in this this slow motion action montage that looks like a opening or closing credits for other superhero movies.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think I think that moment is very well done, and it's an interesting choice, and it sets you up to think that maybe I'm gonna like this movie. On
one of the cups floating is what is it? Rob L, which is this movie's first and not only Rob Liefeld reference.
I don't know that.
Rob Liefeld created Deadpool.
Oh, okay, cool.
Deadpool, Cable, Domino, Shatterstar, who all 3 of those show up in the next movie. So Rob Liefeld gets a lot of call-outs. I don't think Fabian Nicieza does. And I don't think Joe Kelly gets a call-out, and he basically kept the lights on.
You can write them a detailed letter.
Yeah, that opens, and it's this big action scene.
And it's basically Frozen, and you're just traveling around this 3D
and then it's like, how did I get here?
It's pretty cool.
Wade Wilson is, I don't even know what you'd call him. Basically, he gets hired by people to just do any job. Specifically, in this where we meet him, he's being hired by a girl to tell her stalker to back off. And, he holds her at gunpoint and everything and scares him. And then he meets Vanessa at this bar at I don't even remember what the name is, St. Mary's. It's a reference to the comic, and it's where all these people who get jobs get their jobs. And he meets Vanessa, played by we could talk about the cast after. He meets Vanessa. She's a prostitute. He's this bounty hunter, but they fall in love, and they're gonna get married. But it turns out he has cancer. 3rd stage. Is that what they say?
I think it's last stage. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever the last stage is, that's what he's got.
He's terminal. He's thinking about leaving her. She says don't. A person comes and recruits him for this experiment to give him superpowers to say you can become a superhero. So he leaves her to go do that without telling her. And it turns out this place is a bad place. They're torturing people to bring out. They give him a serum that is supposed to bring out any mutant DNA they have, any latent mutant DNA they have, but to do that they have to torture people and create intense pain to bring out the power.
I do think that's an interesting thing that they do. That there's like, first of all, I didn't really know that he was a mutant.
Deadpool isn't.
Oh, okay.
In the comics, in the comics he has cancer, and it is terminal. He goes to the workshop. This place is called in the movie as well. He goes to the workshop, and they get what he actually is given is part of like Wolverine's DNA.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the healing power comes from.
Oh, so sort of like in the movie, the Wolverine movie. Don't they do that? Yeah, because they put in all the different. Okay, right. Anyway, I like this thing about the serum and the torture because I think it's it works really well as like this is how mutants get their ability. Like it usually manifests like a regular mutant. It would manifest in a moment of stress or like puberty or whatever. So that
Yeah.
makes sense. And it serves as a really strong motivation for him for the rest of the movie. So I think that's a really fine choice.
And obviously we're going to spoil Deadpool. He breaks out. The guy there, Ajax, is this bad guy who thinks he kills him. They fight. Wade lives though because he's got this new healing power. He puts on a costume because he does think he's going to be like a superhero character and go off and get cured because that's the thing. He thinks Ajax can cure him of his disfigurement that he got when his powers appeared. Basically, his powers fighting the cancer disfigures his entire body. Gosh, what happens after that? He's killing people looking for Francis.
The big motivation for Wade is he wants to find Francis because Francis tortured him for no reason. Because it turned out he's not making superheroes; he's making slaves.
Right.
So he wants to find Francis.
He's going to cure him because Wade almost goes to see Vanessa after he escapes, but doesn't when he realizes how everybody's reacting to him. So his plan is to get Francis to cure him and then kill Francis, and then he'll go back to Vanessa. So
but Francis doesn't like Wade because Wade was his irreverent self and like made him feel like less of a man with all of his little quips.
And called him
so
Francis.
Both of them have the, animosity towards each other for various reasons.
That's where he finds Francis, so that's where he goes to the car scene. Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead show up and are going to stop him. He gets away. He goes off. He figures out that Ajax has kidnapped Vanessa.
I think it's really funny that you keep calling him Ajax because he's exclusively Francis.
He's exclusively
the entire
Francis.
Movie.
Well, Ajax is his comic name. That's the thing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so, seeing that Vanessa's been kidnapped, Deadpool gets Colossus and Negasonic. They go have a big fight on a helicarrier, save Vanessa, kill Ajax. Movie's over.
That is a very simple plot.
Yes.
That lasts a very long time.
Yes. So Ajax, in the comics, Ajax has no pain, is connected to the workshop. He is like the warden of this workshop, torture people, and him and Deadpool have a big fight to the end. He's bad news. Ajax is played by Ed Skrein, or Skrein? I don't know.
He's kind of a nothing. Did you feel that way?
He reminds me a bit of the guy who plays Captain Cold.
Really?
Just a British version of that.
Okay. Yeah.
He has like a Jason. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. Jason Statham light kind of vibe.
Yes.
We can't get Jason Statham. Let's get Ed Skrein.
Yeah. He just I kept trying to weigh in my mind because the joke at the very beginning is that it's just this British villain, just whatever. And so I was sort of trying to decide if they were trying to make him sort of nothing because all that matters is that he's British or whatever. Right. But it just as a movie, it just doesn't really work because he's just not interesting.
Yeah, Angel Dust is played by Gina Carano.
I like her. I thought she was pretty interesting.
Yeah, she's cool in The Mandalorian as well. She can be very imposing. Angel Dust is a Morlock, but I'm very unfamiliar with her. I think she appeared in a Morlock series that was there. I guess we could talk about the costume. It's one of the first things we see.
Daredevil's costume?
Hilary.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You just said Daredevil.
It's a similar costume.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Deadpool's costume.
Deadpool.
Yeah. It looks good. I think it looks great.
It is a good costume. I like the choice of animating his eyes. I think that's smart.
That feels like it should be game changing for everything else, but I feel like no other serious superhero film will ever do it. But Batman and Spider-Man always have their mask replicate sad eyes and, their angry eyes and stuff that you can't really do. But Deadpool does it. I'm like, let's just accept this. Let's just give Batman his animated eyes. Let's give Spider-Man let's just screw that weird black paint around the eyes. And in the Batman costume, just do the white and animated. I know it will take away from the I don't know, the
Well, the
foundation of.
seriousness. I think it would take away from the seriousness. I think the only reason it works in Deadpool is because it's Deadpool.
But it looks so good and it's so expressive. I just love it.
It's very expressive.
But anyway, it's one of the most like accurate costumes that has ever been on screen, I think. I think the costume is real good. And I love the animated, cause like also it's interesting because Ryan Reynolds is a pretty person. I think at this point, they even in the movie they even show the magazine cover. He was some years sexiest man alive. And
yeah, they show that cover. They also show the one of Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, they do. So like I could see like the studio being like, do not scar his face, do not keep a mask on him this whole time. This is Ryan Reynolds, who's basically just he's famous for being a handsome, funny person.
That's true.
They keep the mask on most of the time, and they keep him scarred up most of the time. So
yeah, you only see him pretty at the beginning.
Yeah, and yeah, so now because this is a Fox film, they were able to say your mutant power, because the bad guy, Ajax is talking to somebody and threatens him, and the guy's like, "Oh, effing mutant."
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, mutants.
I did like that because I always I don't know I guess I just have this like visceral reaction when people acknowledge mutants existing.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's
so
it,
I just
right?
like that happened. And I was like, oh yay, mutants.
I mean that's basically as they say that you're like, yep, this is in the X-Men universe, the X-Men movie universe. Though we don't know which one, and we can say that later. And right away he breaks the fourth wall, which is a straight from the comics as well. Joe Kelly running on, which is good. I mean, it works, but it's funny because I don't think it's necessarily as, I don't know, I don't think it's much of a stretch to have a superhero character break the fourth wall as maybe they think. Because like even the first Spider-Man movie, he's like, if somebody told you this story is normal, it's not normal. I'm going to be Spider-Man. Like...
Well, opening with a narration, I mean, narration just inherently breaks the fourth wall.
Right.
So having that be such an integral part of the movie, then when you see him do it, it's just like, fine. Which, like, it could be like, that's not as strong a choice as you would have expected, but it could also be that they just do it in a really organic way, and so it doesn't
I think
seem unnatural.
Even with like Iron Man 3, where Tony is narrating some of it, at the end, we realize that he's been actually talking to Bruce Banner the whole time, so it's not even like fourth wall breaking in that. But yeah, there's just something about it. I'm like, yeah, he's breaking fourth wall. It doesn't really like shock me, but maybe that's just because I'm familiar with the character.
Yeah, and I think
really
it's also
interesting
because it's...
to go into this movie. Go ahead.
I think it's also because he does it well. I mean, it's Ryan Reynolds. And what he does better than anything else is just like talk at you. So I think it just kind of works.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see this movie with somebody who just doesn't know what they're gonna see, and like, are they like, "Whoa, he's talking to me"? I
don't think it's that foreign a concept. Yeah. Like the fact that you can say break the fourth wall and people know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like it's just. It's a thing that's not commonly done, but it's something that people are familiar with as a technique in literature. So
we see the X Mansion.
Yes,
the actual X Mansion.
So here's where I'm going to talk about this.
Okay.
It's the X Mansion, and later you see the Blackbird, and you see all of these things that are like, yes, this is the X-Men universe, and then you see Colossus, and it's like, who the frick is this guy?
Oh boy, you just had to PG-13 yourself there.
I did. It's just he's so comically different than the guy that we've seen in the
what I read
movies.
Is that the original one, whose name I cannot remember, Daniel. Oh boy, I can't. I don't have the name. He was offered to do it. I think I couldn't find anything.
Yeah,
about it,
I heard that.
He said no because like it's just voice work, and so he wouldn't be there. They wouldn't even model it after like him. He just passed.
Yeah, I think that's a shame. But like even in that situation, like why is the character design so different?
So yeah, I mean the character in his metal, I mean he's only in his metal form, and he's just he's even just like at the mansion eating cereal, he's in his metal form. He looks more comic accurate than he did in the other X-Men movies.
No, he's cartoonishly big.
Right. I mean the hair and everything, it looks like he just came out of like Joe Crockrum's art and everything. Yeah, the character is not portrayed as it has been portrayed, and the thing is, for me, as as more of the X-Men fan than this movie fan, is that he's not even Colossus from the comics in his characteristics. This isn't like, I don't recognize this like Boy Scout. He's basically like the Russian Captain America.
Yeah.
In
It
everything.
does seem like they sort of don't really understand what his character is. His character in the comics is naive, but it's not like paternalistic like he is. Like he's in this movie, he's I mean, which makes sense because I understand why they would want a Deadpool character to have a dad character.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense for it to be Colossus because Colossus just isn't like that. Like he's not trying to impose anything on anybody.
Yeah. Colossus like would be good in the comics as well for Deadpool because he does kind of have like that heart of gold, and he does really try to like maintain the innocence that he's constantly losing. But yeah, all the speech patterns in his big heroic speech, this is something that you'd expect from like an extreme version of like Captain America.
You're right.
Superman.
It is Captain America.
It's like,
I mean, it would make sense for Colossus as you say, he does make sense as a foil for Deadpool, but it would be more way. like he'd be shocked, or he'd be embarrassed, or he'd be like, well, I don't know about that, but he wouldn't be like, no.
Yeah. There aren't really, because the X-Men are usually pretty have layers. They usually have a lot of character to them. There's no like just one, I'm this Boy Scout character in the so I can see why they thought like, oh, we can do this with Colossus. And I'm like, I'm sure most moviegoers, because Colossus is usually a nothing character in the movies anyway, I can understand why they're like, we can get away with this. And they did. For me, though, it's just this like, I don't really recognize Colossus in that character outside of like it being a very accurate design. But the CGI is not great for him. No,
it's very, very not great. Especially if he's just going to live in that style the entire movie. It's not.
It's a bit Michelin Man-y.
Yes, it is.
So, on the other hand, you have Negasonic Teenage Warhead, played by Brianna Hildebrand.
She's fun. I like her.
Is actually kind of there was a rights issue with the movie. Basically, Negasonic Teenage Warhead appeared in Grant Morrison's new X-Men series and has a completely different design, very different, is a psychic, different character and everything. Everything about the character is different in the comic. And the character was killed off. Not really was just kind of like a one-note joke with that name. But they were looking at this, the writers told Playlist, as for the two X-Men who do appear in Deadpool, we chose Colossus as the foil. While the little-known Negasonic Teenage Warhead was picked up for no other reason than that incredible moniker, itself taken from a song by the stoner rock band Monster Magnet. We were looking down the list of 400 X-Men characters that Fox owns, and Negasonic jumped out, and we were like, yes, I don't care what her powers are, she's going to be in the movie.
Well, Deadpool's reaction to her name is just great. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie. But he's just like, what?
But as they told Playlist, they had the rights to Negasonic Teenage Warhead as the character, but not the right to make an entirely new character.
Okay.
Fox had to get the okay from Marvel Studios for that, to make basically a new character. And in exchange, Fox gave Marvel Studios the rights to Ego, the Living Planet, for Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Because you want Ego, the Living Planet. That's an important thing to have.
Gunn wanted him for the Kurt Russell character, and Fox would have owned those rights because they would have been Fantastic Four related. So I guess her power is that she can just make force explosions. Brianna Hildebrand is real good in that role. She's funny. She nails that that attitude.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she seems like a small person in general, and then standing next to Colossus, she's even tinier.
Yeah, that is funny. I think she's really good. Yeah. Standing in opposition to Deadpool, because he manages to be cooler than everybody else and makes everyone else look stupid with his little manner and undermining each person's thing. Mm-hmm. But with her, it just works really well. And you have that moment where he's like, "Oh, so you're a grumpy teenage girl.
Yeah. Are
So
you going
you're
to be
either going to
mean or are
say
you going to
something
be
mean."
sarcastic?
Yeah.
Or
And
yeah,
she says, "You've got me in a box here." But the way she delivers it, she still
yeah,
maintains
yeah,
her like her sense of self
yeah.
or whatever. Like he successfully identifies the thing to make fun of her about, which is his strength apparently with
Hmm.
everybody else, but it still doesn't take her down.
No.
So that's what I really like about
Yeah,
him.
I mean, I know it's a Deadpool movie. I know like Ryan Reynolds deserves all the credit in the world for getting this movie made,
Yeah,
but she's definitely like the breakout character, I think.
she's great. Yeah.
Let's also remember throughout this whole movie, we are reminded that Deadpool is no hero. But
He's
look,
not a hero,
I
you
don't give a
guys.
crap if you're shooting the bad guy at the end and that's not necessarily the hero thing to do. Sorry, you're still every time you say I'm no hero, you're the hero. I get that
true.
you're being subversive, but it doesn't matter. He's got superpowers. He's doing heroic things, even if it's just saving Vanessa and
Yeah.
he kills the. It's still. It's just. It's.
It is an annoying thing to do, especially if you're not going to really delve into it on a
Yeah.
character level. You think that it's going to be like really getting into like why doesn't he feel
Yeah.
like he's worthy to be a hero? But there's none of that.
Yeah.
It's just like
you know
I'm
what?
no
Joe
hero,
Kelly's
I'm
run.
a bad guy.
I know I've said Joe Kelly's run. I've talked about Joe. The comics are just so good. Joe Kelly stuff. He put up so much like heart into the character besides all the joking and the violence and everything. And like the whole. There is a story in there where Deadpool is trying to be more heroic, and it's oh no, the Daredevil wrote Mary. What's her name? Mary. Why am I just
stop saying Mary?
What's her name?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh, why can't I remember it now?
Mary.
Ah, oh, stop it. This is I'm Typhoid Mary. Son of a.
Oh, Typhoid Mary.
Yeah. Typhoid Mary's used in there as like a foil, and she like pushes him to the edge, and it was like a really like it was like a moment when I was reading it, and like this movie's just like I'm no hero, whoop-a-doo, my pants fell, and it's harder to like care about that stuff. But
well, it's interesting
not the
too
crux.
because they definitely could have done character
Yeah.
stuff because right from the beginning, before he's Deadpool at all,
Mhm.
he's this thug or whatever, but
Yeah.
he's the thug with a heart of gold because he
Yeah.
doesn't want to charge the
You're-
girl.
You're my
and,
hero.
like,
That's
Yeah.
not what I am.
I'm not a
Yeah.
hero.
It's just does that. It's not that type of movie. I mean, at that point, but they do play on the whole like I'm not gonna be a superhero. I am gonna be a superhero. I'm not
Yeah.
kind of thing.
So like, I guess why go there if you're
He's
not
no
really
hero.
gonna go there?
Okay, this is
Just
what
let
I wrote
it be
down.
apparent that he's
Listen.
not a hero.
This is why I'm saying there's why it's okay for you to like Green Lantern, Hilary, and why it's okay for us to not get the humor of Deadpool.
Uh-huh.
When he orders a pizza in this film, it's a pineapple olive pizza. And I was like, you know what? That does sound good. I like pineapple and I like black olives.
Is that why you eat that disgusting pizza?
What? No, I like black olive pizza. No, I've liked black olive pizza before. I haven't had a pineapple black olive pizza, but now when he says it, I'm like, oh yeah, because he's like sweet, salty and sweet or something. I'm like, that does sound really good.
Those are the two unacceptable.
Oh
pizza
no,
toppings.
a black olive pizza is real good, especially pepperoni black olive.
You do you, Eric.
I'm gonna order that, the black olive pineapple pizza. This movie might have actually been the most important film in my life.
There you go. Determined the pizza. I do like that scene though. I think he's strong in that scene.
So he goes to that the bar. There's Liefeld is referenced again because he says, "Hey Buck, hey Liefeld." And you know what? I had to rewind because when he said Buck, I thought he said Puck, and I thought that was referencing the Alpha Flight character.
Oh yeah,
But I was then disappointed that it was just Buck.
Buck.
Weasel, played by T.J. Miller. T.J. Miller himself is probably a monster. They cast him again in the second movie, and then I think in the second, like as the second movie was done, but before it was on its way into theaters, a lot of the stuff about T.J. Miller came out. I think there had been stuff
Why
beforehand.
does it keep happening, Eric? Why is everyone a sex monster?
Yeah, and he was a problem on Silicon Valley wrote him out of the series, but I think it just kind of was like it's not worth it to Deadpool 2 at the time to take out the scenes with him. You know, maybe it wouldn't affect his box office and whatnot. But I don't think if there had been a Deadpool 3 with Fox, I don't think TJ Miller would have been back. We meet Vanessa.
So, accepting that he's a sex monster,
yeah,
he's in the movie.
Well, you know what? We're talking
discussing...
about the X-Men series. It's not the first time, and we're still going to talk about X-Men Apocalypse, don't we? Yeah.
Let's just cut all of this and just say, acknowledging that people are sex monsters.
So we meet Vanessa, who is Marina Baccarin from... I mean, every time she shows up in anything else, I'm like, well, you're just Anara from Firefly.
I always think of her as that.
Though
she's also in V, that show from, what was it, NBC?
ABC?
ABC? Yeah, it was ABC.
Yeah, like the alien lizard show.
These people are lizards.
I also watched 5 seasons of Gotham, of which she plays Leslie Tompkins.
Oh.
Gotham is one of those shows that I'm not the same person I was before I started binging that, and it's not.
Are you a better person?
No, I'm not better for it. There are things I just it ruined me.
So the thing about her, I really, really like her, and I have this fear that it's just because she's really pretty.
She is very pretty. It's
possible that I'm just being ultimately swayed.
Yeah, it's the Ryan Reynolds factor, right?
Yeah.
No. It's interesting because she's not really like this huge movie person.
No.
But she was in this role. And it made this much money, and I don't know if I've necessarily like seen her in anything. I mean, that's Hollywood though, right? She could have done the greatest job in the world, and Ryan Reynolds is the one who's gonna get 4 more vehicles, and she's gonna be on season 5 of Gotham.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? I don't know. You can say this, Hilary. I feel like the women in this movie are actually well served.
Oh, Eric.
No? Okay. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Yes. Okay.
Angel Dust.
She's safe because she's a child. Angel Dust is comically strong, and so that's like she's changed from a woman to.
Well, I meant these 3. I meant the 3 named characters.
Inara. I'm just going to call her Inara. I don't even know what her character name is in this movie. Mm-hmm. She's cool and tough, but intensely sexualized, and her character is based solely around her relationship with Ryan Reynolds. Like, what is her life? She's a waitress in a strip bar, apparently, but like that's all we know about her. There's no like true characterization of her outside of her relationship with Ryan Reynolds. And then there's just all the nudity and stuff. And I mean, we're just going to talk about this for a second. I don't like you're going to do a movie that's based on being crass. Fine. But women and their bodies are not a tool for your crass humor. Like, you can say butt jokes, you can say penis jokes, whatever. But part of the joke is not also there's a naked woman. She is not an object. She's not just there for you to shock people.
Yeah.
Vanessa is like, you just see her entire naked body, and you'll say, oh, well, you see Ryan's naked body too. First of all, you see his back and his butt. Ugh.
Okay.
I'm going to need you to... I'm sorry. One is a child. One of them is treated not as a woman, and one of them is treated as a sex object. Sexist.
Vanessa is able to keep up with Wade. And I think the joke of the movie is that no one can keep up with Wade.
If she was just some random person who had no romantic relationship with him, and she was keeping up beat for beat, then maybe. But she's a sexual character, and she's a romantic character, and almost, I don't think anything else other than that.
They is also Copycat in the comics. She's a blue-skinned, white-haired shapeshifter.
Oh, she's got some white in her hair in the movie.
Yeah, I thought maybe later on they were hinting at something, but it's also not a thing in the second movie, so I guess they don't care that she's a mutant. Yeah, in the comics, she's a mutant. Actually, for a lot of people, she's the first Domino, because Copycat is pretending to be Domino in Domino's first appearances in the comics.
Interesting.
Back in X-Force. I guess New Mutants as well. The guy who recruits Wade to the whole workshop thing. Did you recognize him? Yeah, I did. He's from Galaxy Quest.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh boy, I love that movie.
Yeah, I can't find the actor's name now.
He's like the weird
Jed
alien
Reese.
guy.
Yeah, Jed Reese. Yeah, isn't he the one who's like, and he exploded?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Jed Reese is the recruit. As soon as I saw him, though, I'm like, oh, that's Galaxy Quest guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
He just looks the same. Like they
yeah,
have
it's
the
just
weird, like the way they do their hair and stuff in
he's
Galaxy
trying to be
Quest. He just looks like that.
sinister, but it just doesn't come. It's just like, sorry, man, you're from
Yeah.
Galaxy Quest. I'm sure he loves that. Another X-Men reference is when Colossus is like, let's take him to the professor. And he's like, McAvoy or Stewart, these timelines are so confusing.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is true because Deadpool is in the modern day. So that means we're post Days of Future Past.
Yeah. Oh,
Which
yeah,
I guess is how we can explain Colossus as well. He's just different. Has a Russian accent. I don't think the other guy, Daniel Calderth or whatever his name is, I don't think he ever attempted a Russian accent. Nobody ever attempted accents in the...
He had, like, he hardly spoke.
Yeah.
And so I think he had kind of like a tough
Yeah.
voice that could have gone either way.
I don't think anybody in the X-Men movies ever... They didn't do accents with their characters. There are some funny bits about Deadpool not wanting to go to the mansion because it has like a Heaven's Gate vibe or a...
Let's talk about the external references like that, because there's that one, and then there's something about how, like, it's funny that he only sees two of them. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford more.
Apparently that was an ad-lib.
Is there more than that?
Is there more than that?
Like, what of that specific kind break?
Oh, about like the X-Men universe is messed up?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you see he has that figurine of himself as Deadpool.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
And they say, like, I'm going to sew your mouth shut. He's like, oh, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, the timelines, I don't know. I mean, at one point he tells Colossus to tell Beast to stop crapping on his lawn.
Yeah.
So
Beast is a thing.
Yeah. So, and I mean, you've got the Wolverine, when Vanessa takes the mask off at the end, he's wearing the Wolverine magazine cutout on his face.
Yes. Is this the start, or was it earlier, the whole thing, like, in the real world with Ryan Reynolds and
Hugh Jackman,
Hugh Jackman
doing the little Twitter rivalry?
Yeah.
I think it was around this time. It might have been before. I mean, who knows how long it's been going on. I was paying attention to it in like 2016.
He does do one thing because he talks about Wolverine, and he does a whole Australian thing, which has to just be about Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
So that's an external reference.
Yeah. We see, so when we first see the workshop, we see Marrow, at least, an homage to Marrow, the girl with the bones coming out. And you know what? Yeah. I like Marrow. I like Marrow from the comics. I want to actually see Marrow in the movies. But here's the thing. This is what I don't get. Like, everybody talks about how funny this movie is. As soon as we're at the workshop, this movie, like, screeches to a halt for so long.
Yeah. It does.
It does something that, like, you would do in a serious movie, and it doesn't subvert it enough or at all.
Yeah.
Like, all the stuff about him being
tortured.
tortured.
Ryan.
And then Ryan, like, Wade and Francis having that fight in the fire. I'm like, I'm just watching a straight superhero movie. This could be a bad Blade film or something. It just...
Yeah.
That doesn't do anything for me either because I'm not, like, invested enough. It just... It's hard to... I don't really get it. Because imagine if, like, Anchorman had gone on for like 40 minutes, and then suddenly we really get into the ethics of journalism for like a good 20 minutes, and Ron is talking about like this time he had this scoop, but if he had done the scoop, some good people would have lost their jobs and been deported, and he didn't do, and like, and no comedy, and it's just like, that's what this movie does, and nobody seems to like mention that. I imagine,
they acknowledge it a little bit because they say something about, oh, did you think this was a romance? It's a horror movie. Like, they have that moment that, like, tries to give it a transition. But you're right, because, like, Ryan Reynolds is there that whole time. Yeah. He could very easily be, like, being funny throughout all of that.
Anyways, after that fight, I just stopped taking notes. I just had nothing left to take notes of. Mainly because it kind of, like, starts ramping up with the Deadpool humor and everything.
Yeah.
As he's becoming Deadpool. But yeah, I just didn't take notes for a while. The last thing I did is, why do we even make rebar? Because the only time I ever say rebar used is to show that somebody's been stabbed with rebar.
Yeah, you're right.
It's
why
all
is
the
rebar
time.
a thing?
I mean, Wolverine got stabbed with rebar in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sick of rebar.
I am too, Eric.
Listen, I have two...
Let's come out strong against rebar.
I have a great fear that I'm going to die from rebar.
Well, I mean, if movies tell you anything.
So the next thing I took a note of, so like, yeah, he basically puts on the Deadpool suit, goes out, tries to find Francis, and my favorite joke, it's not even a joke, the part that I think is funniest is when he goes to get Colossus and Negasonic from the mansion, and he's like, I need Colossus with me, and she says, why? To get an early morning special at breakfast. He's like, oh right, because it's silly to eat before sundown and save money.
Yeah.
And like, there's just something I'm like, that's funny. I could use more like, I don't know. It's my favorite line from it. So
let's talk for just a really quick second, since we're talking about the serious section. The serious section sort of like forces them, in my opinion, to explain the transition a little more, and they don't even a little bit. You see Ryan Reynolds is like the Wade character from the beginning is like, haha, I'm violent, but it's also funny. So that's there. But the transition to him being as cartoony and insane as he is, I don't really see that transition happening.
So like, again, Joe Kelly is the one who kind of is the one who did the workshop storyline with Ajax and everything. And it was like, it was a serious stuff. There were people that Deadpool knew who were dying, and there was still humor, but it was a bit more serious than the comics had been. But I do believe that like Joe Kelly was able to just put more heart, that you cared about this stuff in there. And so like, you know, do I care about the guy who's like, teabag in this situation? Not really. No. They do the narrative work with the relationship of Vanessa and him being like the important thing to Wade. But I don't care about it. And I
like the relationship. That is something that I genuinely like about this movie. I think that their relationship is compelling. It's like, if this were a romance specifically, I would buy into it.
Did you see all like
their whole thing,
the joke trailers and stuff they put out before this movie where they like advertised it as a romance?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, like some Deadpool would just be in front of a fire, because it came out on Valentine's Day as well. So like they were also just talking about like, for your date, come see Deadpool. I mean, we mentioned Karen Sony, but he plays the taxi driver in multiple scenes. I like Karen Sony. He's funny.
I remember him being in it more.
Yeah,
like when I watched it last night, I was surprised that he has like 2 tiny little scenes.
Yeah.
I thought he was more of a sidekick, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was like he calls him every time he needs to go somewhere kind of thing.
But I do like the whole he left his guns in the car thing. And that is a pretty like, oh man, we lost $8 million. What do we do? Just have him forget the guns in the car. Because it's the second time he did too, because he had forgot everything the first time.
Right,
and then he did again.
And they go through the process of them very visibly collecting all of the guns. I guess
it's just like...
So it makes it extra funny that it's like, that was all for nothing.
When you have Deadpool, with the whole like, X gonna give it to you, I'm like, I get it. You're going for a thing, and it just feels trying too hard for me. But again, $800 million. So what do I know?
$800 million.
We see Bob from the comics. That's Hydra. I guess that's a reference to Hydra Bob, but they can't say Hydra. In the later comics, Deadpool has like a sidekick he's just this regular workaday guy who's in Hydra.
That's always funny.
During this big fight with him and Ajax, Vanessa's put into the same chamber that Wade was put in to give him his powers. And so I thought like, oh, maybe that's how they're going to be like, she's also a mutant now. But it's not a thing.
They did not. Is she in the second movie, or is she just done?
She's in the second movie.
Okay.
Helicarrier. We see the Helicarrier, but it's a different design than the Helicarrier from the other stuff. So I don't even know why they chose a Helicarrier, but there it is.
I did not notice that it was a Helicarrier.
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be too noticeable.
Are you sure it's a Helicarrier?
Yeah.
Or is it just a carrier?
Yeah, no, they talked about it being a Helicarrier, and when it's like crashing and everything, you see one of the vents, one of the propellers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a Helicarrier. Those are my notes.
Yeah.
Did you had notes?
I did have notes. I think we've covered.
Okay.
Let me see what I got.
Yeah, I meant to say Negasonic, when she drops like the overcoat, she's wearing like a New Mutants costume.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like the trainee Mutants costume, which I don't think, like we see those blue and gold ones in X-Men First Class, but we don't really see like the New Mutants costume. Really, not that design. I thought that was cool. I thought that was like, that is what the X-Men trainees wear. It's
a good costume. She sells it.
I'm sure we don't see it in, whenever we get to see the New Mutants movie, I'm sure that those costumes won't be there.
Well, I think they're all just in weird teenage clothes.
It's again one of those things though where it's like, Fox, the X-Men costumes, when you do them, they look so cool. Do them.
That's true.
We'll talk more about that in Apocalypse.
Here's the one thing in my notes that we haven't covered yet. And it is something that people will probably take issue with, but I strongly maintain. When he is in the Deadpool costume, he is hardcore channeling Jim Carrey.
That's what I thought at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, good. So I'm not alone.
I totally got a Jim Carrey vibe when
I was like Ace Ventura, and then I was like Mask. I mean, like that era of Jim Carrey.
When he's in the cab and he pops his head in and he's like, hi there, kind of lonely
Yeah.
back here. That felt so Jim Carrey to me.
Yes. Yep. Cool. I'm glad I'm not alone.
I kept wondering, I'm like, I mean, not necessarily, I don't get it like throughout, but it was that one moment I'm like, holy crap.
I think it pops up a lot, and I think it's when he's being more cartoony with the Deadpool character. Like when it's not Ryan Reynolds has a thing that he does with his humor, and it is not Jim Carrey at all.
Smarmy.
He has a very recognizable Ryan Reynolds style.
Yeah.
But when he is being the like crazy kooky version of Deadpool, I see it a lot. I see a lot of Jim Carrey in his styling and just the way he phrases things and the way he moves. I see it.
Jim Carrey is Canadian.
It's a Canadian thing.
Is that, as a resident part Canadian, is that a type of humor you find very often?
It is not the style of humor that I would say is unique to Canada.
Okay.
No.
So if I went to Montreal, there's not going to be a bunch of people being like, alrighty then.
No, I wouldn't
Did I say Montreal? Isn't that French Canada?
It is.
So
Montreal is Quebec.
I certainly wouldn't be getting the Jim Carrey stuff there then.
So
Toronto?
Can you give me an alrighty then, but with kind of like a French accent?
I don't think so.
Oh, no, I tried. I was going to try it, but I couldn't get it.
Oh, no, I can't.
Oh, nope. Got no idea.
So is that the last thing of your notes? Was that the Jim Carrey
the
vibe?
only thing.
I get it, yeah.
My main takeaways from this movie are...
Yeah, I guess we're in our
I
thoughts now.
don't understand why it's so funny. I like the romance. I like when the humor is the way I like it.
Yeah,
so
that's,
there's that. I think that they sell the style for the most part. So as like a self-contained thing, I think they succeed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Those are my takeaways.
I used to say, because I had only seen this 1.5 times before this, and so I would say I liked it without loving it. But watching it this time, I think I just got to say I don't really like it. It's not really for me. I mean, the action is all like is kind of impressive considering it's like a comedy first. Like
True.
The action is rather impressive, but
it is
because it's so comedic, I don't necessarily I'm not really into the action. I'm not there for the action, I guess.
You can't really get into those scenes in the same way that you normally... Like, normally in an action scene, you would, like, let yourself roll with it, and it doesn't let you do that.
Yeah. It's more just like, oh, that is impressively choreographed. Like,
right,
so from a choreographed perspective,
He does... I find his moves to be too repetitive for him not to comment on.
His action moves?
His action moves.
Like his kicking and his swords and stuff?
Well, he's continually jumping out from behind something, doing a horizontal spin, and then like doing something.
Yeah.
And for this kind of movie, I don't understand why they didn't have him comment on that.
I do like when Negasonic blows up the thing that he's on to send him to the top of the carrier, and he's just screaming in terror.
Yeah. It's like, ah!
Yeah, that's more my jam.
Yeah.
So like as an action movie, I think it's fine, but it's not the type of action movie I'm going to be invested in. Comedy wise, it's not my style of humor, and it's not even the type of humor that I can like really even like pretend to get into. Like just threw it out at all. I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear this. It's just stuff I don't want to hear, and it's nonstop, which is the point. But it just didn't do it for me. As like a longtime Deadpool fan, as him being like one of the first characters beyond just like the X-Men that I really got into comic book wise, like it made me happy to see that there is a Deadpool movie and that it was so successful and that people liked him. He's a bit, in the comics as well, he's overplayed in a lot of ways that it's hard to be a Deadpool fan. It's not even just, I mean, I guess maybe it is a little bit of the, or maybe it's a lot of bit of the, like, well, I liked Deadpool before he was cool. Maybe that's part of it as well, that it's like $800 million, and now he's in every single comic book all the time. It's a little bit of burnout. But the thing is, in the comics, when he's there, I'm still like, oh, it's Deadpool. Like, I was reading the Gambit Rogue honeymoon storyline in the comics, and Deadpool shows up, and he's there for like an issue or two, and then he leaves, and I definitely noticed, like, I was like, oh, where's Deadpool now? So like, if you're not super into the action, and if the humor's not doing it for you, then like just the straight storyline of boy meets girl, superhero origin kind of thing, it doesn't really...
Yeah, there's not enough meat there.
Yeah,
plot wise,
they're just so like, even when you do the interviews, like, we don't want to just tell a straight origin story. I'm like, you did. You told a straight origin story. This is 100% a straight origin story.
Yeah,
you don't get to make your balls joke and then say it's not an origin story. It's just an origin story with balls jokes in it. I get it, but I don't like it.
Well, you're a step further than me because I don't get it.
Yeah.
Kind of abstractly understand why one might find it funny.
Yeah.
See, this is helpful. This experience has been helpful for me because like I genuinely felt both times watching this, I genuinely felt like it was made with humor not at the forefront. You know what I mean? Like I didn't understand, but now I do. So I understand that it was just a different kind of humor.
I think it's weird. It's weird because it is lightly, in this one anyway, connected to the X-Men movies, not necessarily like the X-Men comic universe. And so it feels like when I'm going through all the X-Men movies, like we did with this, I have to watch it. But watching it this time, I'm like, but do I? And like, it seems like even the movie doesn't want you to think of it as an X-Men movie. So like, I don't know. We included it, but it almost feels like when we talked about Scarlet Witch even as a character spotlight, like so many people just see her as an Avengers. Like in the comics, Deadpool is like when he first appeared, and even when he had his own series, it all was kind of like, this is an X-Men, this is under the X-Men property line. But for a long time now, he's not really an X-Men character. He shows up in things with the X-Men, but I think there are plenty of people who know Deadpool is just Deadpool.
Yeah, I think he's a peripheral character, and I think it's just
he's gone beyond
by virtue of his style for the most part. Like he just doesn't integrate into any other storyline. Like the whole thing of his character is that he just sort of like pops in and floats above the reality of the situation.
That was our Deadpool episode. A weird episode.
Weird episode.
So
yeah,
I
weird episode for a weird movie. We should have had a guest who loves the movie. That's what we should have done.
16-year-old me would have loved this movie. This movie would have completed him.
Well, it's almost like we shouldn't have even done this episode because clearly this movie was not made for us.
If they're gonna say mutant and gonna have Colossus in the X-Mansion and mention McAvoy, and you might not love Deadpool 2. And maybe you won't even like it. Who knows? You're a wild card, Hilary.
Yeah, I am.
But I think you will still like it more than this one. And I think there's more of the X universe / comic book universe to hold on to.
Well, that's good. So I'm looking forward to Domino.
Yeah, I'm Dust vs. Tweak everywhere online. Don't at me if you are really, really mad at me about my thoughts on Deadpool everywhere online and apart from other shows on the Radio Meanwhile Network. I'm the co-host of the podcast, The All the Books Show. Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Join us for our next episode as we start Season 2 of the X-Men anime series.
Season 2!
With
and
a two-parter.
If you haven't listened already, listen to our interview with the showrunner of the Season 1. We do kind of a fun recap situation there.
It's a two-parter. It's the, I don't even remember the name of it because it's been a while. But yeah, it's the whole like, oh, Scott and Jean are going to get married, but are they?
Oh no, here it comes.
Also, our next movie episode will be on X-Men Apocalypse.
Okay.
Hilary, you don't like anything. You don't like Deadpool.
Sorry, Eric.
I'm sorry X-Men Apocalypse isn't Green Lantern, Hilary.
Oh, shut up.
Listen.
Green Lantern was fun.
I am 100%.
Apocalypse is unwatchable.
I get why you don't like X-Men Apocalypse. I'm not going to try to convince you to like X-Men Apocalypse. I just don't want you to be mean to me next episode when we talk about it. Hilary, are you going to be mean to me?
What if I just really want to be mean to you?
I feel like that's it. Like somehow you're going to take all your anger.
Well, okay, I don't like most of it, but I like this one thing. And I'm just like, you know what, Eric? You're stupid.
I'm worried you're going to take all your rage and channel it at me. Like somehow I created X-Men Apocalypse just because I'm like...
I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen.
I didn't do it.
Why didn't you get in there and fix it, Eric? Oh, man. This episode has been much longer than I thought it was going to be.
Well, we talked about again, we had our Aristotle's-like discussion of humor. So. Hilary, what is humor?
What is humor? I don't know what accent we're doing.
I don't know. An intellectual.
It's Fraser Crane is what it is.
A bit of Fraser, a bit of Matthew Berry these days, I think. What is humor? Now we're really veering off. Again, you can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. at Previously on X. And please rate, subscribe, and share the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.